All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get straight into it. I don't know if you had, well, I don't know, obviously, this is new news to us. We weren't expecting this to happen today, but NOPD recruit being detained by ICE agents in regards to his citizenship. First, and this may be an obvious question here. You do have to be a citizen to be an NOPD officer, correct?
I don't know the answer to that. It would be up to the NOPD and how they make their rules. They may allow permanent residents to be officers, but that would be up to the city.
I'm really questioning, what does it take really to get a social security number here? Because I know with some people who are on the path to citizenship, sometimes they are given government issued social security numbers. So can you tell me what does it take to get a social security number if you're someone who is from another country, maybe lived here for about 10 years before you decide to do something like this?
Well, a normal path for people to get a social security number is to apply for some sort of adjustment of status to become a permanent resident, and then you'll receive an interim employment document, a work permit. And with that, you can go get a social security number, and then, of course, driver's license and things like that. Lately, what you've seen is over the last 4 years with the influx of people coming across the border is they will apply for asylum. And then they'll wait 150 days. They can get a work permit. Then they use that work permit to get a social security number, and they can work lawfully while their asylum application is pending with the government, which could take 4 or 5 years sometimes.
We obviously don't know all of the circumstances behind this NOPD recruits detainment, but you have someone who has been here from all circumstances, from what NOPD tells us, legally for 10 years, and they even said they go through an e-verify system where they verify his information, verify that he was here on legal status. What could have happened between the point that he was recruited for the NOPD and to the point up to this morning where he was detained by ICE that would have made him a target for ICE?
He could have fallen out of status. He could have been on some sort of temporary status where he's fallen out of status and became an illegal alien. Also, he could have been convicted of a crime somewhere that violates immigration law and makes him removable from the country.
Yeah, I know that right now, according to Chief Ann Kirkpatrick, they say that he passed a criminal background check and was not convicted of a crime. Can you talk to us about legal status? I know that this process, and I think this process there are several layers when it comes to the process of becoming a citizen of the United States. Can you talk about what legal status is and what are the types of legal status you can have before attaining full citizenship?
Well, there's two types of status. You can either be an immigrant, which is somebody who's allowed to live here permanently, which is a permanent resident, with a green card holder. Or you can be a non-immigrant, which is somebody who's only allowed to be here on a temporary basis, maybe 6 months if you're a tourist, maybe 2 to 3 years or 4 years if you're a student on a student visa that's non-immigrant, but you eventually have to go back to your country. When you're an immigrant, you adjust your status to become a lawful permanent resident. And then you receive your permanent resident card, which some people call a green card. You hold on to your green card for 5 years. And then you can apply for U.S. citizenship and be naturalized. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, then you only have to wait 3 years, but everybody else has to wait 5. Then you apply for naturalization. They do your background check and your civics examination, then you're sworn in as a naturalized U.S. citizen.
And how long does that process typically take anyone who's trying to become a naturalized citizen?
Through the New Orleans field office, my office sees somewhere between 8 to 10 months from the time you file it until the time you're called in for a naturalization examination, about 8 to 10 months. And then if you pass your examination, you're generally sworn in pretty soon thereafter.
Well, we see a lot of activity from ICE either in Minneapolis, recently in New Orleans, some in North Carolina. Do we see a lot of people turning away from the naturalization process, or do we see any of these naturalization ceremonies still happening? Typically, we would hear about them. The public would be invited. We haven't heard about them very often. Do you know to any degree if they've been pretty much canceled or paused at the moment?
I haven't heard of them being canceled or paused, but mine aren't moving as fast as they normally would. So I don't know if there's some sort of internal memo asking the government to slow down the process. They can do extra background checks from certain countries or certain people, but I haven't heard anything at all through my sources or through my organization I'm involved with where they've actually stopped naturalization proceedings. If they did, it would surely draw some lawsuits.
I know. Do you have any clients right now who are currently going through the process, maybe finding it a little more difficult than usual?
I mean, it's about normal, but it takes a little bit longer than usual in some cases. I've noticed that because they're doing extra screening, especially with naturalization. They take a deep dive in any small conviction, and they really dig into it. So it's not a simple, I'm just filing some paperwork and we'll get it approved and we'll go from there. But they really take a deep dive. If there's any kind of criminal record, it'll slow the process down. Sometimes it'll slow it down dramatically.
I know that ICE has said this in the past, that they were looking people who were here either undocumented, who had criminal convictions or committed criminal offenses. But as far as we know, this officer, this NOPD recruit, did not have any criminal convictions, was not convicted of anything whatsoever. So what would have made him get on ICE's radar? For some people who are confused about who exactly is a target here.
Well, my question would be, was he a non-immigrant? Or was he an immigrant? If he was an immigrant with a green card, then he's allowed to possess a firearm. So citizens and permanent residents can possess a firearm. Everybody else cannot. So I would be concerned if he's possessing a firearm, going through his training or whatever his duties are. That's a violation of federal law. It's also a deportable offense. So if he's a non-immigrant, even if he has no criminal records, even if he's lawfully in the United States on student visa, tourist visa, work visa, whatever, he's not allowed to possess a firearm. So if he is signed up to be an OPD and he has a firearm that he's using as his duty weapon, that's a federal offense.
Well,
yeah, it's a crime.
Well, that's to speak to NOPD.
I don't know if that's the case or not, but yeah.
Yeah, but it
I
should
don't know if that's the
speak to
case or not, but
NOPD.
that would be the question I would ask.
NOPD doing their background check, saying that he checked all the boxes. They said he had no criminal background. They said that they did their due diligence in this one. So there's something that happened in the months in between where his citizenship obviously took a turn. Is this setting a precedent right now with police officers? Do we feel like a lot of ICE agents or anyone in the ICE field offices are starting to look at officers, or has this always been the case where they look at police officers, they look at people in different jurisdictions to see if they have legal status or not?
It's rare. This is one of the, I've heard of these types of cases a couple of years ago where it was up north. There was an illegal alien that was actually a police officer in the town. This is the first time I've seen it locally, and it's very rare. I've been practicing almost 19 years, and I think I've heard, including this one, maybe 2 cases. So it is very rare.
Do you think that it is the city's rather identity as a sanctuary city, or rather being identified by the federal government as a sanctuary city, though that's not legally in the books here, that makes us sort of get a little bit more of a thorough looking at when it comes to our police officers and our citizens?
I would agree with that. I would agree because I've noticed that most of the cities that the Trump administration is sending ICE and Border Patrol to for raids appear to be sanctuary cities. You've got Chicago, you've got Minneapolis, you've got New Orleans. They seem to be targeting these specific cities for whatever reason.
Mr. Gahagan, if you can just give us some clarification on a sanctuary city. And I talked about it really not having any legal bearing or anything. Some people believe that sanctuary cities are something that are written down, that are in the law books, but it really isn't, right?
No, most sanctuary cities are just your politicians have decided that we are not going to help the federal government enforce federal immigration law. So word has gone down to the chief of police, or the local sheriff or whatever it is that, from the mayor, we're not going to do this. We're not going to assist the federal government in enforcing federal immigration law. We'll still enforce federal drug laws and things like that, but not immigration law in particular. There is a section 287G of the Immigration Nationality Act that allows, like Lafayette, the sheriff's department, is signed an agreement with the government where they will help the feds enforce federal immigration law, but some towns just refuse, and they're tagged with the term sanctuary city.
Yeah, so can you tell us just kind of next steps here in this process? Obviously, we know he's being detained by ICE right now. Is this something of an immediate deportation, or does he get an opportunity to stand up for himself in a court of law?
It depends. If he has a prior deportation order that we don't know about, then they'll expedite his removal and they'll bring him up North Louisiana. He'll be held real quickly while they process him, put him on a plane in Alexandria and send him back to his home country. If he's never been removed from the country before, then he has a constitutional right to due process. So he has a right to a bond hearing in front of an immigration judge. Then he has a right to a removal removal proceeding in front of an immigration judge. If he's in custody, he'll be up in North Louisiana, most likely at one of the jails up there, going through the proceedings. If he bonds out, then he'll probably be going through the New Orleans Immigration Court on Canal Street, where he'll have to appear for his master calendar hearing and then his individual merits hearing, and they'll have a 2 or 3 hour trial to where the government, Immigration and Customs Enforcement in particular, has to prove by clear and convincing evidence that he is removable from the country for violating some immigration law.
All right, and Mr. Gahagan, thank you so much for giving us some clarification on some of this. Thanks, and there's a lot more details to come out.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.